Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Suzette and I are here to lead us through yet another Friday webinar, I guess. Sorry, Suzette, that was me wanting to say FAFSA Frenzy Friday webinar. At any rate, today's webinar, we're going to talk about the reports that high school counselors have available through eGRandS in order that they can pull in order to track FAFSA submission, completion, et cetera. That's the goal of today's webinar. So first, let's talk about eGRandS and a little history regarding eGRandS for any school counselor or any person joining the webinar today. That's your question. First question is, Jason, what in the world is eGRandS? So eGRandS is the system that THEC and TSAC uses to administer all the state financial aid programs. So from the Hope Scholarship to Tennessee Promise to Tennessee Reconnect to the Dual Enrollment Grant to the Ned McWhorter Scholarship and so on and so forth. And so historically, from a college/agency perspective, that is what eGRandS is used for. That said, on the high school side, eGRandS, there's a separate version of eGRandS for the high school counselor for you to manually enter final GPA information in determining Hope's scholarships. You know, as Suzette and I, have been doing these webinars now for a number of years. Obviously, over the years, we've had some new advances, such as Suzette's electronic transcript exchange. Like I said, Suzette is electronic transcript exchange. But that said, right, some of you may never use eGRandS because, right, you use the Tennessee Electronic Transcript Exchange, and therefore you never do it. But FY, eGRandS, from a high school perspective, initially was all about you using it once, twice a year to enter your GPAs for Hope Scholarship purposes. But over the years, we've now, this is where we keep certain reports that you guys have found, I think, very important for you to pull to track whether it's Tennessee Promise completion, whether it's Dual Enrollment Grant completion, and as we talk today, the importance of tracking FAFSA completion. So how do you get to eGRandS? Well, if you go to our website, tn.gov/collegepays, and you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the screen, under Important Links, you will see eGRandS User Access. So when you click eGRandS User Access, this is when the eGRandS new window will open, and this is where you will log in to eGRandS. I think a couple of notes here. One, again, if you're brand new to this, and you're like, Jason, I don't have an eGRandS account, you can email me after the webinar, and I will email you a form that you will complete, have your high school principal to sign so that we can create an eGRandS account for you. Number two, Suzette, you probably would agree this might be the most important thing I say, at least from eGRandS, is currently. eGRandS is best used and accessed through Internet Explorer, all right? Some of you perhaps laugh when I say that. Others of you may roll your eyes. Guys, just understand, as of today, eGRandS is most compatible with Internet Explorer. TSAC, our IT team is working to make eGRandS fully compatible across all web browsers. Hopefully that will be done soon. However, I'm not going to put a date on it yet because the IT team is still working towards making it compatible across all web browsers. But again, most important note perhaps thus far is when you use eGRandS, make sure you are using it through Internet Explorer. If you are a school system which you do not have Internet Explorer, y'all know, or I hope you know, that you can always email or reach out to your local TSAC outreach specialist or myself, and we can download any reports that you otherwise are unable to access because you do not have access to Internet Explorer. So once you log in to eGRandS, here's your report options. And the first report we're going to talk about is the Tennessee Promise report. So when you're in eGRandS, this is your initial view once you have successfully logged in. On the left-hand side of the screen, you will click on New Reports. And once you click New Reports, you will see this Select Report box come up. And in this case, I'm walking us through how to download a Tennessee Promise Report. So you will click the Scholarship Application Status Report - Tennessee Promise. This is what we refer to as our Tennessee Promise Report. Once you click that, a new box will open, a new window will open, and this is where you will select the 2021 academic year. As a reminder, I do understand this is currently the 1920 academic year, but understand our high school seniors, they have completed the 2021 Tennessee Promise application and are in the process of currently completing the 2021 FAFSA. So to access that data, you've got to select the 2021 academic year, in step 3 here. Step 4, you click the View Report button, and then finally step 5, once the report is viewable, step 5, you click the steps that you see there, and this is where you can choose how you would like to save your report, whether in a PDF form, whether it's in Excel, et cetera, et cetera. My recommendation is this Tennessee Promise Report should be pulled now through February 1. February 1 being the FAFSA deadline for Tennessee Promise purposes. This is the report you should pull now through February 1 to track FAFSA submission and completion. Okay, and see that I've lost the words. I mean that's it. I mean that says it all, right? But seriously, pull this Tennessee Promise Report now through February 1. This is the report that you should be concerned with pulling and tracking FAFSA completion. So here is an example of the Tennessee Promise Report. Again, at this point in time, the column in which you should be reviewing when you pull this report is specifically that FAFSA column. So an N would indicate that the student has not submitted the 2021 FAFSA, whereas if you see a Y, the Y would indicate that the student has submitted a 2021 FAFSA, and adjacent to the FAFSA column is the FAFSA update. So in other words, when you see a Y, next to that Y, you will then see the date in which the student submitted the 2021 FAFSA in this case. Those of you joining and listening to this webinar as of November 15th, TSAC has downloaded 2021 FAFSA records through October 22nd. So for those of you who are listening to this webinar, again, Friday, November 15th, or even perhaps over the weekend or early next week, the 17th, 18th, 19th, et cetera. As of November 15th, TSAC has downloaded FAFSAs through October 22nd. So for those of you who pull a report, you're like, Jason, where's my FAFSAs that were submitted on the 23rd, 24th? Again, folks, we are in the process of still catching up. Catching our system up with all the FAFSA records that have come in. And again, as of November the 15th, the morning that Suzette and I are recording this webinar, FAFSAs being reflected on the Tennessee Promise Report are those that have been submitted through October 22nd. And again, over the next days and weeks, we hope to catch up eventually. So when you're looking at your Tennessee Promise Report, if you go to the very end, some of you, larger schools, may have 16, 17, 18, 19 pages of the Tennessee Promise Report. Some of the smaller schools may only have 2 or 3 or 4 pages. But when you go towards the end, the last student that you will see right underneath that part of the table on the report, you will see a status count. The status count is simply the number of Tennessee Promise applications. So in this case, the screenshot you see on the right of on the screen, status count reflects 522. So for this particular high school, 522 students submitted a Tennessee Promise application. That said, underneath the status count, you will see a myriad of various statuses. Please do not fixate on these statuses as of today. This is an ask that Suzette and I have made to the eGRandS team to remove these statuses from this report. I believe it will happen in time. It's just, again, our eGRandS team's more worried about obviously getting eGRandS caught up with all the latest FAFSA records than making changes like removing statuses from this report. But again, my point is don't worry about the status right now, because folks, that's internal TSAC eGRandS stuff, if you will. And I think, Suzette, we gave this example earlier to a counselor. You know, if you're looking at this screenshot and you see that by ineligible you see 111, and some of you who have emailed and texted me this week asking, you know, Jason, why in the world do I have students on my promise report who are already ineligible and it's only November 15th? Folks, here's again this behind the scenes internal eGRandS stuff, for lack of a better word. Guys, understand, when we receive a FAFSA, all right, we look at the first Tennessee college listed, and whatever that college is, that's what we then update in our system, and all state aid is based upon that first Tennessee college listed. So, for example, a student who indicates Middle Tennessee State University on their FAFSA as the first Tennessee college listed, when we receive that student's FAFSA, all that student's state aid, HOPE, TSCA, Tennessee Promise, will now reflect as if the student is attending MTSU. As you guys know, MTSU is only a baccalaureate degree issuing institution and higher, right? Therefore, from a promise perspective, the student's promise record now reverts to quote unquote being ineligible because MTSU is now the institution on record. Again, it's November 15th. The student is not ineligible for Tennessee Promise. The only reason the student would be ineligible at this point in time is if he or she did not complete the Tennessee Promise application, right, by November 1. So that being said, that's why I don't pay attention to these statuses right now. As long as the student appears on the Tennessee Promise report, that means they've satisfied step 1, the promise application. The next thing, just focus on the FAFSA column. As long as there's a yes in that FAFSA column between now and February 1, or by the February 1 deadline, then that student has satisfied step 2 and then has steps 3 and 4, mandatory meeting and community service, still to do. As long as he or she does all 4 of those steps, they still will be eligible for promise potentially next fall if they so choose to attend an eligible Tennessee Promise institution. So thus, why Suzette and I wanted to talk about, again, the statuses on the promise report. Please do not fixate on the statuses at this time. So the second report we're gonna cover is the FAFSA by high school report. So same thing. When you log into eGRandS, you'll click New Reports on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you'll see from the Select Report options here. In this case, we will click FAFSA by high school. Once you click FAFSA by high school, a new window will open. In this case, or I should say, the only difference between the promise report versus the FAFSA by high school report is that the FAFSA by high school report specifically asks you to indicate a high school graduation year. So again, let's think 2021 FAFSA. That's what you're going to select as the academic year. And I would say all of us initially will select 2020 as the grad year, because for the majority of us, we chiefly work with May 2020 grads. Once you select that, click View Report, then again, step 6, you have the option to save the report in whatever file you like. That said, let's go back to grad year for a bit. Some of you have December 19 grads, and you will want to maybe to track them in terms of completing the 2021 FAFSA. If that's the case, then for grad year, in your case, you will want to indicate the 2019 grad year. You'll still select 2021 as your academic year, but that grad year, you would reflect 2019 if you're trying to see information for a December 19 grad. Now, all that said, some of you may be wondering, and we're going to get to that note in a second, but some of you may be wondering, Jason, Suzette, where is the grad year information coming from? And on this report, very important to note here is this report, FAFSA by high school, populates when in eGRandS a student's FAFSA connects with his or her ACT test record. It's from the ACT test record where we get the grad year information. So assuming, again, a student who's completed and done the ACT, taken the ACT, assuming that they indicated that they were a May 2020 grad, when their FAFSA is done, those two records eventually will be connected based on Social Security number. And again, that's how they will populate on the FAFSA by high school report if you select 2021 for academic year and 20 as a grad year. On the other hand, for those students that may have indicated December 2019 on their ACT test record, same thing. That's why it's going to be important that you after selecting 2021 as the academic year, select 2019 as that grad year. That will capture any of your December 2019 grads on this report. So just a note there. Final note, again, Tennessee Promise Report, that's the one you want to pull now through February 1. After February 1, that's when I want you to begin pulling this FAFSA by high school report. And when I want us to be focusing on this. So again, pull this FAFSA by high school report after the February 1 deadline. Here's why. So, example of the FAFSA by high school report. A lot of good information on it. I'm going to make note of specifically the blank EFC and the FAFSA verification columns. So, if you notice here, we got student 1 and student 2. So, student 1 and the Gavick High School, on the FAFSA, you see institution name, Austin Peay State University. This means that student 1 listed Austin Peay State University as the student's first Tennessee college on the FAFSA, okay? So, for example, a student may have listed University of Alabama, WKU, Austin Peay, Nashville State in that order when eGRandS receives it, because Austin Peay in that order was the first Tennessee college listed. That's what we are going to list as the student's college of record for state aid purposes. Okay, whereas student 2, you'll notice, listed Nashville State. So same example. Let's say the student 2 on his FAFSA, put Nashville State first, then WKU, for example, second, followed by Middle Tennessee State University. Again, in that order, Nashville State was the first Tennessee college listed, and therefore state records will be dictated by Nashville State being number 1. So columns, let's first now look at let's look at the blank EFC column. Blank EFC, this will let you know, is there an issue with the student's FAFSA? And notice here, student 1 has a yes in the blank EFC column. So student 1 has a blank EFC, meaning again, this student's FAFSA, there's something wrong with it. Jason, Suzette, what's wrong with it? Guys, we don't know, but what we would do, or what we'd ask you to do working with the student, is the student should return to FAFSA, log in, review that student aid report, and review page 1, see what the issue is. Perhaps there was some income that was double entered. Perhaps there's a signature issue where there's either a lack of a signature, or maybe the student's identity was not authenticated and therefore the student's signature didn't take. So again, those are all examples of what could lead to a blank EFC. And to me, from the FAFSA report perspective, beyond the institution information, I think the blank EFC column is one that definitely a counselor should review. And any student that has a yes in that blank EFC column, to me, we should work with those students to ideally fix the FAFSA at that point in time. The other column to me of note here is the FAFSA verification column. And in student 2, you see yes. What this means is student 2's FAFSA was selected for verification, which means, if we fast forward to the spring, more than likely that student has received some sort of communication from his or her college indicating that your student's been selected for verification, or your student's FAFSA has been selected for verification. Please go here to complete the following verification process. So again, as you review this FAFSA high school report, any student that has a yes in this column, I would encourage you to let them know, just in case they might not be reviewing their email as they should be, because obviously verification is something that's better to take care of early than wait until the summer to take care of it, because obviously that can delay financial aid and receiving Tennessee Promise, the Hope Scholarship, TSCA, Pell Grant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Towards the bottom of the report, you will see different totals. In this case, for this particular report, Suzette and I pulled and just did a screenshot of. There were 72 FAFSAs at this point in time that had been submitted at this high school. In this case, because again, we're talking about the FAFSA high school report, another way to look at that is what that means is you had 72 FAFSAs which were submitted and actually connected to ACT test records. Of those 72 records, there were 3 blank EFCs. So again, that means as you look at that blank EFC column, you're going to see 3 yeses on this example report. And then 26 of those 72 FAFSAs have been selected for verification. So that means you would see 26 yeses within the verification column. So that's why I think this is a very important report to pull. But as Suzette and I said on the previous screen, don't worry about this report to me until after February 1. That's when, February, March, April, May, that's when you should be pulling this report to monitor blank EFCs, to monitor FAFSA verification, and lastly, to monitor the colleges that are listed. Where again, student 1 who's listed Austin Peay, if it's May and all of a sudden student 1 has decided that he or she is attending Nashville State, well, this is a student at this point in time that we should instruct to return to the TSAC student portal and update their state aid monies from Austin Peay to Nashville State. So again, the third, I think, valuable piece of this report. And then I've already highlighted this note, but yet again, students will not appear on this FAFSA by high school report until the FAFSA has connected with an ACT record in eGRandS by way of matching social. Internally, Suzette and our colleagues are constantly working and marrying these records throughout the academic year. That just takes a little bit of time. And so that's why, yet another reason why it's best to pull this report after February 1 to kind of give us between now and February 1 to marry the records that we need to get married to populate this report. So that actually concludes the FAFSA eGRandS reports webinar. As always, my team's contacts across the state, as I mentioned at the very beginning, those of you that do not have Internet Explorer on your computers, perhaps because your district's IT says we don't use Internet Explorer anymore, I understand. If you need either of these reports, by all means, contact your local outreach specialist, or and you'll see my contact information on that previous screen as well. But here is my specific contact information, my email. As a reminder, that is my cell phone number. So again, if you need a Tennessee Promise report to track FAFSA completion between now and February 1st, or thereafter, you need the FAFSA by high school report, again, reach out to your TSAC outreach specialist, or you can contact me directly, and I'll by all means will download and send you the report that's being requested. That said, from Suzette and myself, you guys have a wonderful weekend. And if you need anything, please reach out to us. Thank you so much for joining yet another FAFSA Friday. I guess we should end on this to say, more than likely, more webinars will be scheduled, perhaps for after the holidays. Specifically webinars we typically do after the holidays. We do a FAFSA verification webinar. We honestly kind of do a report 2.0 webinar as well, where again, I think we highlight blank EFC verification, institution name, updating things to the TSAC student portal. So be on the look out for communication from the TSAC team regarding when these webinars will be scheduled in the future. But again, guys, thank you as always for joining us. Take care. God bless. Have a great day.